laughed out of the market. The market was loud and crowded, filled with shouting voices, metal clanking, and creatures from many planets. Bright lights blinked above rusty metal stalls, and the smell of burnt oil and dry spices floated in the air. Traders called out their prices. Buyers bargained. Drones buzzed past with boxes. In the middle of all this chaos sat a small alien girl. She was thin. Her skin was soft blue and covered in dirt. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, and her hands shook as she held a small silver item close to her chest. She sat beside a wall, not in a stall. She had no money for one. 5 credits, she said quietly to a passing customer. Only 5 credits? The buyer looked at her, saw her weak form, and laughed. For that junk? Not even. Worth 1 credit, he said and walked away. The girl didn't cry. Her big eyes just lowered to the ground. She held the item tighter. 2 market guards leaned against a pillar nearby. One of them pointed at her. She's still here? Huh. Must be the 10th day. Look at her, the other said. Trying to sell scrap metal like it's treasure. She's lucky we haven't kicked her out yet. They both laughed loudly. Other traders joined in. The girl looked down again. Her lips moved. Maybe she was praying. Maybe she was just too tired to speak. Another customer stopped. What's this? The woman asked, looking at the item in the girl's hands. It's a family stone, the girl said softly. It glows with warmth. It's from my mother. The woman grabbed it, turned it around, and scoffed. Just cheap alloy, I wouldn't pay 2 credits. 5 credits, the girl repeated. The woman tossed it back into the girl's lap and walked off. The guards laughed again. Still dreaming, poor thing. Suddenly, footsteps stopped nearby. A human man stood in front of the girl. His boots were dusty. He wore an old mechanic's jacket stained with grease. His face was rough, with short black hair and tired eyes. He looked down at the girl without speaking. She slowly looked up. 5 credits, she whispered. He knelt down slowly. What is it? He asked. She showed him the item. It was shaped like a small leaf, made of silver with strange glowing lines. Inside, it pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. This was my mother's, she said. She said it would protect us, but I must sell it. I need medicine for my brother. The human man looked at it for a long time. The guards behind them laughed again. Come on, human, don't waste time on garbage. She's trying to trick you, but the man didn't listen to them. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a pouch. From inside, he took out a 10-credit chip. The girl's eyes widened. No, 5 credits only. He smiled gently. Then take the rest for your courage. He placed the chip in her hand and stood up. The market went silent. The guards stared. One trader muttered, 10 credits? For that junk? Another whispered, he's mad. The girl didn't speak. She just stared at the chip in her palm like it was a dream. Her fingers curled around it slowly. The human turned to walk away, but the guard stepped forward. You can't do that, one said. Why not? The human asked calmly. She's not allowed to sell here. She has no license. The human took something out of his pocket, a small badge shining with golden edges, Galactic Citizen Level 2. The guard stepped back. She's under my protection now, he said. Then he looked at the girl. Get up, he said softly. Let's go get your brother some medicine. She blinked. Then she stood up. Her legs shook, but she followed him. The crowd watched in silence as the human and the alien girl walked away, side by side. She looked back once at the market, the guards, the dust, the laughter. Then she looked forward and didn't stop. The alien girl walked beside the human, her feet weak, her mind full of questions. She held the credit chip tightly as if it might vanish. The market was far behind them now, but the memory of the guards laughing still echoed in her ears. Why did you help me? She finally asked, her voice barely a whisper. The human didn't answer at first. He kept walking, his eyes watching the path. Then he said, because I've seen someone left on the ground before. I didn't help that time. I still regret it. She looked up at him. He didn't seem rich or powerful. His jacket was old, his boots dusty, and his hands stained with machine oil. But there was something calm about him, something steady. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus," he said. "I'm Keela." He nodded. "Nice to meet you." Keela. They walked through narrow alleys between the scrap towers of the lower district. The city above was bright and full of life, but here, everything was broken and forgotten. Keela stayed close to Marcus, afraid someone might take her, money or worse. Soon they reached a quiet corner near an old metal gate. A small shop sat there, dim lights, shelves full of bottles, powders, and strange tools. Marcus opened the door. An old alien with 4 eyes and a hunched back greeted them. "Ah, human, you came back," Marcus pointed to Keela. "She needs medicine for her little brother." The old shopkeeper looked at Keela carefully, then asked, "Symptoms?" Keela explained, "He's very weak. His skin is cold, his breathing shallow. He doesn't wake up easily." The old alien nodded and began preparing a small kit of herbs and injections. Keela watched as Marcus paid without a word. Again, she was surprised. He didn't even ask how much it cost. Outside, as they walked again, Keela hugged the medicine close. "You didn't even know me," she said. "But you gave more than anyone ever has." Marcus shrugged. "You looked like someone who needed help. That's enough for me." Keela looked down. Her mother had once told her stories about humans, how they were dangerous, unpredictable, ruled by emotion. But this one was kind. She asked slowly, "Are you a soldier? A spy?" Marcus smiled a little. "I'm a mechanic. I fix broken things." Keela gave a small laugh. "Maybe that's what you're doing with me." He looked at her and said, gently, "Some things deserve to be fixed." They didn't speak for a while. The street was quiet. The stars above peeked through the cracks of the metal city. But Keela's thoughts were loud. Who was this human? Why did he carry such sadness in his voice, and why? Did she feel safe for the first time in so long? Suddenly she stopped. Marcus turned. "What is it?" She looked at him seriously. "If I take you to my brother, it will not be safe. The place I left him, it's dangerous. There are gangs, thieves, and if they know I have credit—" Marcus didn't blink. He simply said, "Then we'll go together. You lead the way." Keela stared at him. Most people would walk away at this point, but this human, this stranger, was ready to risk danger for someone he didn't even know. Something inside her began to change. She nodded slowly, and for the first time in many moons, Keela didn't feel alone anymore. The old alley led them to a hidden part of the city, where the lights no longer reached and the air smelled of rust and damp cloth. Marcus led Keela to a small workshop behind a pile of broken shuttle parts. The place looked abandoned from the outside, but when he pushed the door open, warm light poured out. Inside, the air was dry and calm. Old metal shelves were stacked with wires, tools, and broken machines. In one corner, a soft mat and a blanket lay on the ground. In the other, a kettle was boiling gently on a power plate. It wasn't a home, but it was safe. "You can sit," Marcus said, placing a few rations on the small table. He took a piece of bread and tore it in half, giving her the bigger side. "Eat." Keela didn't move at first. She stared at the food like it was treasure. Then she sat down slowly and began to eat with quiet, hungry bites. She hadn't had real food in days. Marcus watched without saying anything. After a while, he gave her a bottle of clean water. She drank, her hand shaking slightly. Then silence fell. Keela glanced at Marcus. His hands were busy repairing a broken circuit board, but she could tell he was thinking. His eyes weren't just focused, they were troubled, like a man running from something invisible. She broke the silence. "You don't talk much." Marcus smiled faintly without looking up. "You don't need many words to do the right thing." Keela looked at the floor. She wanted to ask what made him this way, Why he was kind when the rest of the world wasn't. But instead, she whispered, "Do humans always help strangers?" He set the tool down and looked at her. "No, most don't. But sometimes someone has to." She nodded, understanding him more now. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who had made a choice. To care, even when no one else did. Keela reached into her satchel and carefully took out the silver leaf, the same heirloom she had tried to sell in the market. "I didn't want to sell it," she said, softly. "But my brother, he's all I have left. I thought if I could get medicine, maybe." Marcus didn't speak. He just listened. She continued, "This item belonged to my mother. She died trying to protect us during the border raids. My brother and I escaped, but he fell sick. I hid him in the old rail tunnels. He's still there." Marcus leaned forward. "How long ago?" "2 nights," Keela whispered, her voice breaking. "I had nothing else to trade. I just needed enough credits to buy this medicine. I thought maybe 5 would be enough." He nodded slowly. "Then we'll go first thing in the morning. But you need to rest." Keela looked surprised. "You're not afraid? The tunnels are dangerous." "I've worked on old warships buried in plasma storms," he said with a small smile. "Tunnels don't scare me." She smiled too, just a little. For the first time, her shoulders relaxed. "You're different," she said. Marcus replied, "I fix broken things, remember?" That night, she lay on the soft mat under a faded blanket. She watched the ceiling as the hum of the power plate filled the silence. Beside her, Marcus sat at his bench, quietly working on a small toy-like drone. As she closed her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you, Marcus." He didn't reply, but the small drone in his hands lit up for the first time. Outside, the city slept. But inside that tiny workshop, something new had begun to grow. Not just safety, but trust. The sun never reached the lower tunnels of the city. It was always dark there, cold, damp, and forgotten. That morning, Keela stood at the edge of the old transport shaft, her hands gripping the medicine kit tightly. She looked down into the darkness with fear in her eyes. Marcus stood beside her with a small shoulder light. "Are you sure he's still down there?" he asked. Keela nodded. "I had no other place to hide him. It was the only space I could find that was safe from gangs, from everyone." Without a word, Marcus started climbing down the old maintenance ladder. Keela followed behind, her heart beating faster with every step. The air grew thick and heavy. Rusted pipes lined the walls, leaking water that dripped like slow tears. Rats scattered as they walked deeper into the shadows. The walls echoed with every breath. Keela suddenly stopped. "This is it," she whispered. She rushed forward to a pile of old blankets and boxes in the corner. Beneath the blankets lay a small alien boy, barely breathing. His skin had turned pale purple and his eyes were closed tight. He looked thinner than Keela, like he hadn't eaten in days. "Riven." Keela dropped to her knees and gently touched his face. "Riven, wake up, I brought help." Marcus knelt beside her. He opened the medicine kit and began checking the boy's pulse and breathing. "He's alive," he said calmly. "But weak. Very weak." Keela's hands trembled. "Will he make it?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He took out a small injector and pressed it gently into the boy's neck. A soft hiss came from the device, then another for hydration. "We need to get him out of here," Marcus said. "He won't survive another night in this place." Keela looked around nervously. "But the surface isn't safe. If the gang see us carrying him, they'll try to take him, or the medicine." Marcus looked around and spotted a broken delivery bot nearby. "Then we hide him in plain sight." Together they cleared the bot's compartment and gently placed Riven inside. Keela wrapped him in blankets while Marcus rewired the panel. Within minutes, the bot hummed to life again, moving slowly like an old trash unit. "He'll stay warm inside this," Marcus said. "We'll move like workers. No one will stop us." They began walking back through the tunnels, the broken bot rolling beside them. Keela held her breath every time she heard voices or saw shadows. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Hey, what's in the crate?" Two tall figures stepped into view. Gang members, faces covered, weapons at their sides. One pointed at the bot. Marcus stepped in front of Keela. "Just scrap parts, nothing valuable." The taller one stepped closer. "Let us see." Before Keela could panic, Marcus reached into his jacket and showed a small black card. An old engineering badge from the Galactic Corps. The gang member froze. You're a Corps worker?" Marcus nodded without blinking. "You want to mess with someone who can shut down the air pumps to this sector?" The gang members exchanged a look. "Keep walking," the second one muttered. They disappeared back into the shadows. Keela let out the breath she was holding. "You weren't afraid?" she said. "I was," Marcus replied softly. "But your brother needed me to be strong." They made it back to the surface just as the sky began to shift colors. The warmth of morning light reached them through cracks in the metal roofs. Inside the workshop, Marcus placed Riven gently on the mat and checked his vitals again. His breathing had improved. His tiny fingers twitched. Keela fell to her knees beside him. Tears rolled silently down her face. "He's going to make it," Marcus said. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "You didn't have to do this. You don't even know us." Marcus looked at her with tired but kind eyes. "I know enough. I know what it feels like to be left behind." Keela reached for his hand. "You didn't just save my brother. You saved me too." And for the first time, the small broken family wasn't alone anymore. The warmth inside Marcus's workshop felt like another world compared to the cold tunnels they had just escaped. Riven now rested quietly, his breathing deeper, his skin slowly gaining color. Keela never left his side. She held his small hand and whispered old lullabies their mother used to sing. Marcus sat nearby fixing a cracked heater, but his ears stayed alert. Something in his gut told him peace wouldn't last. He was right. That afternoon, the first visitor arrived. A tall alien woman in a black coat stood at the door, eyes sharp like glass. She didn't knock, she simply walked in as if she owned the place. Her voice was smooth but cold. "Keela," she said. "There you are." Keela's eyes widened. She stood quickly and moved in front of her brother. "I'm not going with you," she said. Marcus stood up slowly. "Who is she?" Keela's voice shook. "She worked for my uncle, the one who took our house, our name, everything." The woman's eyes flicked to Marcus. "You must be the human who paid for trash at the market." Marcus didn't respond. He stepped closer to Keela, placing himself between her and the stranger. "You have something that doesn't belong to you," the woman said. "She's not property," Marcus replied calmly. "She's a person." The woman's lips curled into a small smile. "Then you should know, people from her bloodline aren't safe out here. Too many enemies. Let me take her back. We'll give her food, a roof." Keela whispered. "They'll kill us." Marcus didn't flinch. "Then you're not taking her anywhere." The woman's smile vanished. "You're making a mistake, human. She's part of something bigger. A royal bloodline left unfinished. She carries a legacy others want buried." Before Marcus could speak, she was already stepping back through the door. "You've been warned," she said. "Others will come. Some won't be so polite." The door closed. Keela dropped to the floor, shaking. Marcus placed a blanket over her shoulders. "You said you were just trying to survive, but now I know you were running." Keela nodded. "My uncle staged a betrayal. He told the High Council my parents planned a revolt. They were executed. I took Riven and ran. I never wanted the throne. I just wanted to live." Marcus thought for a moment. "Then we make a new plan." "What kind of plan? One where they don't find you again?" He stood up and walked to a hidden panel in the back wall. He pressed his hand on a scanner and a section of the wall slid open, revealing a long hallway leading underground. "A secret passage?" Keela asked, eyes wide. "Old service tunnels," Marcus said. "Built for moving ship parts. No one uses them now." "But where does it go?" "To my old hangar." Keela blinked. "You have a ship?" Marcus nodded. It's not pretty, but it flies. We'll leave before nightfall. She looked back at her brother. Can he handle the trip? We don't have a choice, Marcus said. That evening, with Riven wrapped safely and the heirloom tied around Keela's neck, they entered the tunnels. As they moved through the shadows, Marcus's thoughts grew heavier. He had only meant to buy a small item from a girl in the dust, but now he had taken on a war. Behind them, trackers were already following the scent of the royal girl. The silence in the tunnels wouldn't last. And ahead, the stars were waiting. The hangar was buried under layers of old metal and forgotten time. Marcus hadn't been here in years. Rust covered the doors and the lights above flickered weakly, but the ship, his ship, still stood tall in the center. It was no beauty. Its wings were scratched, and its paint had faded, but the engine still breathed. It was a working soul, just like its owner. Keela stared at it in awe. It's huge, Marcus chuckled. She's old, but she listens to me. That's all that matters. He opened the ramp and carried Riven inside gently, placing him in the softest place he had, an old pilot's chair wrapped in blankets. Keela followed close behind, clutching her heirloom tightly. The ship smelled like grease and burned wire, but to them it smelled like freedom. Marcus started powering up systems. We'll leave in 10 minutes. Where will we go? Keela asked. There's a mining moon near the edge of the system, Marcus said. No patrols, no eyes, quiet place to disappear. As the engines began to hum, a red light blinked on the console. Marcus froze. Tracker, he muttered. They tagged the tunnel. Keela's face went pale. They're coming? Not just coming, Marcus said. They're already here. Outside, the ground began to shake. A hover transport landed near the hangar, and masked soldiers began to spread out, weapons in hand. Keela ran to the small window and gasped. That's my uncle's crest. Marcus handed her a small metal device. Take this. If something happens to me, press the red button. The ship will launch automatically. She looked at him, frightened. What are you going to do? He pulled on a thick jacket and grabbed a blaster from under the console. Buy you time. No, she cried. You already did too much. You gave your money, your food, your safety. Now this? Marcus looked at her with steady eyes. Sometimes a one-kind act costs everything, and it's still worth it. He ran down the ramp before she could stop him. Outside, the guards spotted him. Human, one shouted. Where's the girl? Marcus raised his hands. I'm alone. No one else here, they laughed. You think we're that stupid? One guard stepped forward to grab him, but Marcus moved faster. A flash of light burst from his blaster, hitting the ground beside them. In the chaos, he ducked behind an old crate and fired again. Back inside, Keela watched from the window, her hands shaking. Riven stirred in his sleep, and she knew they couldn't stay. She ran to the controls. Come on. Work. Suddenly, a loud bang hit the side of the ship. A guard had found the ramp. Shots fired, metal sparked, systems blinked. Then the ship lifted. Marcus had pressed the red button. From the ground, he saw the engines roar as the ship rose into the sky, the ramp closing behind it. A guard tried to shoot, but Marcus tackled him to the ground. The ship climbed higher, breaking through the clouds, carrying Keela and her brother far from the hands that hunted them. Inside, Keela pressed her face to the window. She couldn't see him anymore. Only smoke and fire where he had stood. Her heart broke. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But she whispered, he didn't just fix things. He fixed people. The stars welcomed them. The mining moon was quiet, covered in silver dust and endless skies. There were no cities, no noise, just soft winds and glowing rocks. Keela's ship landed near an old outpost, long forgotten by the galaxy. As the engines cooled, silence wrapped around them like a blanket. Inside the ship, Keela sat beside her brother. Riven's color had returned. He was awake now, weak but smiling, his hand resting in hers. The medicine had worked. He was alive. But Marcus wasn't there. Every time the door opened, every time the wind howled outside, she hoped to see him. But days passed. No message. No ship. Just memory. One morning, Keela stepped outside. The moons above the mining world glowed pale blue. She sat on a rock, holding the silver heirloom in her hand, the one she had once tried to sell for 5 credits. She smiled bitterly. They laughed at it, she whispered. They said it wasn't worth even scrap. But one human had paid more, not just credits. He paid with kindness, courage, and, maybe, his life. Suddenly, a strange beeping sound echoed from inside the ship. Keela ran in, heart pounding. The ship's screen was blinking with a message. Hangar 17, cargo secured, alive. Keela gasped. It was from Marcus. She didn't wait. She powered up the ship and took off. Hours later, she reached the signal. It came from an asteroid repair dock hidden deep in a nearby belt. As the ship touched down, her hands shook. The bay, doors opened. There he was, standing with a bandaged arm, grease on his face, and that same tired smile. Keela ran to him and threw her arms around him. I thought you were gone. Marcus laughed gently, wincing at the hug. Almost was. But I had a promise to keep. She pulled back, her eyes full of tears. Why did you do all this? For me? He looked at her for a long moment. Because, in a world full of cold hearts and closed doors, you were the only one still trying. Even after everything. That kind of hope is rare. It's worth more than credits. Riven walked up slowly, holding the leaf-shaped heirloom in both hands. He looked up at Marcus and said, You saved us. Mama would have liked you. Marcus knelt down. Then I'll make sure to keep protecting you. Both of you. Keela smiled, holding her brother close. They weren't rich, they weren't powerful, but they had each other, and that was something no market could sell.